Hello everyone. Confirm me once. Am I audible or not? Okay, fine. Just give me a minute. I'll share my screen and then we'll start the session. All right. Okay. Is the screen visible? Okay. So today we are going to take a part 2 of this spec-driven development with AI. First, let me give you the context that what we have covered till now, those who have not joined the previous webinar. So in previous webinar, we basically covered about the basics of spec-driven development, what it is, and what are the things available inside it, and how workflow actually being created inside spec-driven development. So just a basic definition and the introduction about it. We just get familiar with spec-driven development. And we have also seen what we have covered in the part 1. This is the introduction, workflow, example, as well as we have done the manual implementation in our project. So these are the things we have covered in the previous webinar. Now, today, we will use AI to work with spec-driven development. It will going to be the fully automation work. AI will create all the things for us. And just give you the more context that how spec-driven development actually works for those who don't know about this. So this is what we have taken in the last section with an example of a spec-driven development where we are creating a feature which is adding a comments to a post in our project. So how spec is being created for this particular feature, we have seen this. This is an example. We have not done this in our project. So this is what we have seen in the last webinar. A problem statement for the specification and functional requirements, as well as the user flow, and then edge cases, acceptance criteria, definition of done, and out of scope. These are the things or points that are available in our specification. After this, we have to create a plan based on our specification in our SDD workflow. So this is the second step where we actually define all the things, tech stack, implementation design for our particular feature. And once we do this, then the next step comes, which is a task. Here you define all the tasks for the particular feature, and you also delegate those tasks to the developer who is responsible for developing that task. If that task is for backend, then the backend developer is responsible for this. Same goes for front end and UX designer. So this is what the spec driven development we have covered in the last section. Now let's move to the today's topic now. Okay, we have seen this definition also. Actual difference between the vibe coding and the spec driven development. Okay. So should we start now? Did you all get the idea of what we have covered in last webinar? Okay. So now let me open my project and just let me verify. Yes, okay, project is visible. So in our previous webinar, we created one of the feature. Basically, we are creating a split-wise application where we are able to split our expenses in a group of people, and later on we settle up the price. So it's kind of that type of application we are building in our project. And for that, we have created one of the feature, which is an account feature, so that user can create an account and see their expenses there. So we have implemented the spec for that. And the spec that we have created in the last webinar is done by manually. Means if you look at here, this is a product spec. I'll just open this so you actually get to know what this actually contain. In product spec, we actually define that what this spec is for and what we are actually building in this project and what are the features required in this particular project. So basically 4 features we have decided: the account one, which we have already created in the last webinar, then groups and members, expense and split mode, and the balances and setup. So in today's webinar, we will see these 2 features: groups and members and expenses and split mode. This one will not cover because that is the same. So our main goal is to understand how SDD work in this feature, not to implement all those features. So we'll see those 2 features right now. And for account feature, which we have built in the previous webinar, we have created these 3 files: a plan, a spec, and a task file. And we have implemented this and we validate all those things based on the acceptance criteria that we have mentioned in our spec file. Now let's do this with the help of an AI. We are building our next feature, this one, groups and member. So to build this feature, we don't have to create this spec file now manually and define all those things. Instead, we'll use one of the feature in our Claude code, which is a feature of custom commands. If you have used any of the AI agent, maybe Cursor, Codex, Copilot, or Claude Code, I'm not sure about the Cursor and the Copilot, but Codex and the Claude Code has a feature of creating their own custom commands. So we are using in this webinar Claude Code for this building this project with the help of SDD. So in Claude Code, we'll create a custom command where we'll define a spec and we just call that custom command at once, which will create our spec menu automatically. So I'll show you what we are actually going to do. So I'll open the terminal now. Okay. First, we'll start the Claude here. Okay, I think yes, Claude is open. Now, in this spec folder, this Claude will create one custom command. Okay. So as you all know, to create a custom command in Claude Code, we have to create one folder inside your .claude folder. This is a Claude Code feature. This is not related to SDD, but here we'll create our custom command. So I'll first create a folder, commands, and inside this, I'll define the name of my command which I want to use. So in our case, I want to create a spec file. So for that, I'll create a custom command. So I'll just write the name, create spec. By the way, just wait for this because after this feature, we'll create one more feature where we will use the different approach of creating the SDD. This is the first approach where we are creating a custom command, but the second feature will be using with a different approach. So you will get idea of how spec-driven development actually work with different approaches. So we'll create this create spec.md file. Okay. And now here we'll mention the template for this creating a spec for every feature. So what template we are going to use here? I have already written this so that we don't have to write in front of right now and it will not take time. So this is the feature here. Just a minute. Create spec. Okay, this one. So I'll just copy this and I'll show you in VS Code what this feature actually contain and just paste it. Okay. For now, we can minimize this terminal and look at only in this spec file. This is a template file for our every feature. So I just defined a custom command where I said that this is the name of my command, which is a create spec. And I have given some context in the description for this particular project. I'll say create a product level feature specification for the Split C project. This is the name of our project, which we have given. Use this skill when asked to define or specify a new Split C feature before implementation. So I've given this context. And then I say, whenever you're building a specification for any feature, you should first read claude.md file, which is a memory file for our project. I hope you know about this claude.md file. It's a feature of Claude Code where you can define all the guidance and the instruction, how your agent should behave inside that project. So that we have defined and we mentioned in our spec file also that always read claude.md file as well as spec.md file of the product. This is the product one, a global one which we have created. So it read all these two files before creating a specification for that project. And here we define, use them only as a context for understanding the product, terminology, existing behavior, and specification convention. So all those necessary things I want to mention as a template, I'll mention here that what are the points it needs to follow in our spec file. I'll say this all points like a user story, then acceptance criteria should be there. Out of scope point should also be mentioned, as well as open question. And then done means, what's the definition of done? And then I've defined some rules in our template. Okay. Now I have created this. Now just I'll use this command to create a feature, which is feature groups and member. Okay, so create this feature. I'll first show you what the workflow we actually following from the last webinar. So if you look at here, whenever we are creating any new spec, or I can say new feature, we first create a new Git work branch. Okay, so we'll create a new branch for every feature. And once we create this, we'll do all the commits there. And then we'll push those code into the GitHub. We'll merge that branch. And then at last, we will delete that branch once the feature is completely implemented. So this is the entire flow we are going to follow. So based on this flow, first thing, I'll commit this particular code in our main branch, and then we'll create a new branch for our groups and member feature. So first let's commit this particular code. I'll use a shell mode here, and I'll say git add, then full stop, enter. So now tracked git commit m -m, and I'll say one for spec, and then push. At last, I need to push it also, git push origin main. Okay, perfect. We can verify it here as well that we have now this commit. Now let's create a new branch and start implementing that feature with the help of this custom command. So I'll just write a commit command git checkout -b, and the name of the feature is groups. Okay, let it be groups only, and then click enter. So now we are in the new branch, and here we will use this particular command. So previously we have to done all these things manually. If you look at here, this is spec file. I have to create this spec file in my folder, and then I have to define all those things by myself. But now let's take a help of AI. So in create spec.md file, I'll write a simple prompt, which again I'll copy from here. So file groups and member, this one. So just copy this and paste it here. So what I have written here, I just written here that use my create spec. Okay, it should not be like this. To mention this particular command which we have created just now, I'll use slash, okay, space, and I'll write here slash create spec. Okay, actually it is not targeting, I think so, because we are right now currently running in the same session. So it is not able to fetch our latest file. So the simple solution for this is rerun your entire Claude once again. So exit from this session and we can restart it again. So it will fetch our latest file. Slash exit. And now we can resume with this particular command. So we can run inside our same session. Okay. Now I think now it is able to get our latest command. So if I write here create, yes, now it is able to fetch this command which we have created just now. So I'll use this command and then I'll paste this prompt, copy, and then paste it here. I'll remove this create spec because we have already mentioned it. And I'll just write here that this is the name of my feature, which is a groups and member. A sign-in person creates a name group add other people to it by their exact email address, sees which groups they belong to, and can leave or delete a group. So I just give a name of my feature which I want to build, as well as a little context about that feature. Why we are giving like this a name and the description? Because if you notice here in our create spec.md file template, we have written something like this. If you notice, treat the user feature request as a feature to specify. So we are using an argument, a dynamic argument. So whatever I mention here, it will automatically get injected in my template file. And if you notice here as well, the file which we will create is in the form of slug. So the dynamic name which I mentioned in my prompt will also get attached here, and based on that, my spec file will get created. Okay, so so now you can see how much work has we have eliminated with the help of our custom command. We don't have to write all the rules and where this file should available, because we have defined all those things in our template. We just call our custom command, give a name of the feature as well as a little context about it, and we are done with the spec. So with this, now let's click enter and wait for it to create a spec file for us. By the way, in between, are you able to understand what we are doing right now or what we have done till now? We are just automating our task with the help of Claude by creating a custom command. And after that, we'll also automate our design technical details that we have created in our accounts folder like this. We'll automate this one also. And of course, task will also there. Okay, so it has created our spec file, as you can notice here, along with the group name. And the group name is follow 002, because we have mentioned in our template that always follow a unique name before creating a folder. So if I show you here, I think we have mentioned the name. That's why it created as 002. Mm, feature, following section, order, acceptance criteria, 3 open questions. Okay, we have mentioned it somewhere. That's why it has created the next number folder, 002. And inside that, it has created a spec.md file also. So let's open it and close this one, close this, and minimize the terminal. And we can look at it. Or maybe I can open it as a in a markdown format in this viewport, so you are able to understand it better. I'll close this now. So this is what it has created for us based on our custom command. The user story, which we have mentioned in our template, that always follow these particular points. So it has created the user story where it says, as a person with Splitsy account, I want to create a name group and add other people to it by their exact email addresses. See the groups I belong to and leave or delete a group, so that the expenses I share with a particular set of people have somewhere of their own to live. So this is a basic user story it has created for this feature. And then the acceptance criteria, when this feature should get accepted once it is completed. So all these acceptance criteria are mentioned here. And then out of scope feature, as well as the open questions. So these are the things it needs a clarification. So if you notice here as well in the terminal, it has listed all the open questions. I have to answer all these questions one by one. So it will then update my spec.md file from need clarification to answered, because we have answered all these things here later. And at last, we have mentioned the done means when this spec will get completed as done. Okay. So now it's time to answer all these open questions which Claude mentioned for this spec feature. So what I can do, instead of answering manually right now all these questions, I can take a help of AI. But for this session I'm doing here, but if you're actually working in a particular feature, you have to do all those things manually, because at the end you have to know how things are actually working. So just for fast forward, we are just using the AI here to get the answer. So I'll open a side chat and I'll paste my questions and I'll say, recommend me the answers, or I'll say recommend me answer. Click enter. So it will recommend me all the answer for these questions. Okay, so these are all the answers. I can copy it now. Total 8 questions are there, right? If I'm not wrong. Okay, let me copy this first. And we can now go back to our main agent session. Here, yeah, total 8 questions were there. We can paste the answers and now click enter. Right now, we are getting the answer with the help of AI. But again, as I told you before, you should answer it manually by yourself so that you actually know what is the questions it needs to get clarify. Okay, so it got all the answer and all 8 answers are folded in. What changed? Okay, all these changes are done. Okay, it has not updated my spec file based on the things. Maybe I should look at here whether spec file is updated or not, or still it shows a need clarifications. Open questions. Okay, now it says none outstanding. That means all are done. We can look at here also. This is not updated. Yes, now we can see all the open questions are answered. Okay, so our spec work has done, which we have done with the help of AI. Now, the next task is to create a technical design, or I can say plan based on our spec that we have created for our feature. So as you all know that spec file is basically a normal non-technical things mentioned there so that anyone can read it and understand what this feature is for and what are the things this feature should contain. So how to implement this feature, what tech stack we need to use, all those things will be available in our plan file, or I can say a technical design file. So for that also, I'll take a help of an AI. We have an option. I'll use this command, plan this one. Now, basically what we are doing in Claude Code, we have a feature of plan mode. The Claude itself says that whenever you want to create a technical design based on your requirements, in our case, the requirements are a spec file, you can use a plan mode. So it will create a particular tech stack based design or technical design implementation for your particular feature. So we'll do the same thing here. To go into the plan mode, the easy way, you can just write the slash and then plan. And when you click enter, you will be inside of plan mode. Or the other way to get inside the plan mode is using the shift tab. So if I write shift tab, enter. Okay, not like this. Shift tab, manual mode on, except plan mode on. Okay. So when you write this, you are able to change the mode, which mode you want to in. I want to go in the plan mode, so I'll just keep clicking shift tab until the plan mode will arrive. And now plan mode is enabled. Here I'll paste my command, this one, and I say I'll just remove this because already we are in the plan mode. I'll just mention my file just to make sure, claude.md file. Claude.md file. Why is it? Okay, the issue is that the Claude is in full capital letter. Claude.md file. Along with that, we have to mention our spec file also so that it can make a plan around our spec file only. So just remove all those things and I'll say use a spec file for our group one. Group spec file. Yes, this one. Enter. Okay, so all the path has been mentioned. And I'll say then create a detailed plan for the same. Not go with a detailed plan, otherwise it will take much more time. And our main goal is to understand how plan is being created, not to be so specific. So I'll just use a create a plan. It will create a plan for me. And now let's click enter. So it will read our both file, spec file as well as a cloud.md file where we have mentioned all the guidance. And based on that, it will create a technical design implementation for this particular feature. We will review it. I'll just close this one and this one. Once the file is available here, we'll review the changes. Okay, what it says. I'll explore how the account feature was built so the group two background agents launch. Okay, it has automatically invoked two sub agents based on the task. Plan mode on, read cloud.md, waiting for two background agents to finish. Okay, so I can monitor the work of those agents, I think so, by using the slash agent command and click enter. The agents wizard has been removed. Okay, I think we have to use another command. Sub agents command is not there. Okay, no worries. Let's wait for it to complete our task. Reading task and session. Okay, this is the thing it is doing. Okay, we can monitor the sessions from here. We can switch between them. This is a main agent. These are the two agents it invoke. Checking it ignore and task.md file. Let's wait it for to complete our plan.md file. We can keep it like this. Okay. Okay, one task has been done from one of the agent. So that's why it has removed from here. We can look at this one now. Checking.getIgnore and task.md file. Okay, so both agents work has done, I think so. Design group domain layer. Okay, file is not yet generated, I think so. I think file will not get generated. It will only show read the and plans at domain design. Then I'll have one or two things to settle with you. Waiting for one background agent. Okay, this one. Maybe it will take our approval whether it should create a plan.md file or not. Okay, let's wait for it to complete. Mm, by the way, it is creating the file. Let me tell you that the next feature that we are going to build, which is I think expense one or maybe the balance one. So the feature that we are going to build will build with the help of one of the framework which is basically used to work with the SDD flow, spec-driven development flow. So right now we are using our own custom command as well as the plan mode from the Cloud Code to work with the spec-driven development. But if you want all those things, you can use one of the framework which is very popular and which is a GitHub Spec Kit. That framework is basically made for this spec driven development workflow only. So we'll move to that part once we build that feature. Okay, I think it is about to create file. Meanwhile, we can look at the things here in spec file. A signed in person can create a group with a name. Total 20 acceptance criteria are there for this feature. Okay. Given a person who created a group and has been asked to confirm. By the way, you should always review this spec file before moving towards a plan mode or designing a technical details. Right now we didn't review because we are here just for the learning purpose, but in real project you have to do all those things. Okay, the meaning of done, sign in person can create a group, any member, blank name. Okay, let's look at the work. Okay, it's still working. Okay, meanwhile, we can do the second step. Let it complete this task. The thing that we are going to build the second feature with the help of GitHub spec that we have discussed just now. So I'll tell you what the GitHub spec and what are the things available there. Okay, till that it will complete this task. So let's go here. Etc. Just a minute, I'll keep it here and this. Yeah. Okay. So we are going to use GitHub Spec Kit. As I told you before, this is basically created only for the spec-driven development workflow in your AI workspace. So in the GitHub Spec Kit, they have some inbuilt commands. We'll discuss about all those commands. So based on those commands, you can just create a spec file, implement it, as well as create a task. And not only these three things you can do with this spec kit, there are multiple useful commands also available. Like if you want to clarify, you want to have some doubts related to a spec file, you can do that also. You want to go for the analysis, like once you created the entire task and you want to run the test cases, all those useful commands that are necessary for the spec driven development are available inside this GitHub spec kit. Okay. So to install this GitHub Spec Kit, there are some steps that you need to follow. So we'll go to the actual documentation website, or I can say the GitHub repository where it will mention all the installation guide. So if we look at here, in the installation guide, this is a prerequisite, but we can skip that part. You can look at here. If you want to install, you can use this command, which is a UV. UV basically a package manager for installing the things in your Python. So you can use this package and then you mention the specify CLI, and then the particular URL, and as well as the version, that which version you want to use. But if you don't want to use this command, then you can go with this command also. UV tool install specify CLI. When you run this command, it will install that GitHub spec kit in your system. So they also recommended that you should always follow the UV package. But if you want to go with the PIPX, you can, as well as the PIP. NPM one is, I think, not available right now. So you need to go with the UV. So to make sure that UV is installed in your system, I'll give you the command to install the UV. You can look at here. Uh, I mentioned, yeah, GitHub spec kit. These are all the commands that you need to use. The first one, make sure you have a UV in your system. So run this command. I'm using a Mac OS, that's why I'm using a brew here, because brew is also available. But if you are on Windows or somewhere else on another operating system, you can use that command to install the UV. Okay, so once you install it, open your terminal to verify whether UV is or not. So I'll just write here UV minus minus version, then enter. We can see that UV is installed with this version. The next thing, as I mentioned here in the note, that you have to install the specify CLI. So using the UV, so I'll just copy this command, and then we can open the terminal back, and I can write this. Click enter, and it says specify CLI is already installed because I have installed it. Now, once you install it, the next step, you need to verify whether it has successfully installed or not. So you can run this command specify minus minus version. When you click enter, it will show you the version. Okay. Now after this, you can also run this in your terminal by using the command which is specify version. When you run this command, it will open the terminal UI for this specify. I'll just write, and you can look at this. If I keep it in the full size, this is how it looks like. So if you get all these things, that means it has successfully installed in your system a GitHub spec kit. Now it's time to use it in your project. So to use this, first let's clear this and minimize this window. Okay. So to use this, you have to go inside your project directory wherever you want to use, and then you need to use this particular command, which is a specify, then init, and then make sure you use a period here, or I can say that full stop, so that it install the GitHub spec kit inside that particular directory instead of creating a new directory. If you mention something else here, let's say you mention my project name, which is in our case split C. So if I say split C again, then it will create one more directory with the same name inside my project directory, or I can say that in my existing directory. So make sure always use a period here. And we'll use this command to implement a feature with the help of GitHub spec kit. But after, once we completed our previous feature, which is currently running. So we have seen the steps. Only thing is that we need to use in our project. So we'll use afterwards. Let's go back here to see the process. And I can see this something is there. The spec never says what happens when the creator leaves a group that still has other members. Group becomes undeletable. Okay, it needs some clarification. I can go with the recommended approach. Feature 001 keeps a plan.md and a task.md inside its spec folder. Should I produce those two? Okay, now it is asking me, should I produce that file in your project folder, or should I only implement the file? Plan mode files only. Keep the plan mode in the scratch plan file in the session only. No, I don't want to keep it in the session. I'll want to keep it in some my folder. So I'll go with the first option. And group becomes undeletable, plan.md, task.md in a repo. Okay, submit answer. So it will create my plan as well as the task file. Let's wait for it to complete, and then we'll review it. By the way, which AI agent are you guys using? Cloud Code, Cursor, or something else? What's your personal favorite? Okay, Cloud Code. Yes, Cloud Code is good in terms of coding, but for reasoning and research purpose, and sometimes in coding, that Codex also works well. Okay, so Claude has written up a plan and is ready to execute. Would you like to proceed? Okay, so now if you notice here, plan is already being created, and you can look at here. This is the plan, I think so. The next step, it is doing a task, which we have seen in our drawing board also. Here, if you can see here, the spec is created. We have reviewed that, as well as the plan, which is a design. It is also created. We have reviewed that as well. Now the next thing is the task based on the plan it has created. So for the task, it is asking us that how you should go with the task. Use auto mode or use manual approve edits. So I would go with the second option. I want to see what are the changes it do for my all the task, and then we'll review it. And if that task is good, then we'll approve the edits. So I'll go with the second option. And yeah, it will now create the task. I think these are the tasks: add signs of visit or acceptance criteria. Okay, these are the task order. Okay, we have not seen this. So this is the entire plan it has created for our feature. All the technical details are mentioned here. We can just directly jump to the task. As you can see, the routes also mentioned that these two routes should be available for this feature, and files that needs to be created, and the task order. Okay, so these are the 8 task order and one commit per task. Okay, verification as well, acceptance criteria, plan approved, writing the 2 repo docs it calls for. We can review the things. Okay, so model is also created by it. Context. Okay. Do you want to create plan.md? Yes, I want to create. Okay, now plan.md file is available. We can review it now. Okay, so this is how plan is being created for this feature. Let's start from the start. Approach. A group is a group, row plus one group member, row per person in it. The business rules, creating, renaming, and adding member. Okay, all this stuff. Then the data models that should be available. Accounts, domain functions. Okay. Refusing without leaking. Then add member, as well as route and server actions. Two routes slash group with a get method, and slash group ID again with a get method, as well as the server functions. And then the UI work, one name field, submit to create group actions, and total files that should be available for this feature. And then the test plan. Okay, so these are the acceptance criteria for this plan. And risk, no new dependencies proposed, nothing here needs one. Okay, so this is the entire plan for this feature, and it looks good. If you want some modification, you can do by yourself, or you can take the help of AI again to modify the task. But in our case, it looks good for this feature. Let's see how the tasks are being implemented now. So open the terminal. Do you want to create task.md file? Okay, let's create. Okay, so task is also created. Let's see total number of tasks and what are available here. Okay, so total 18 tasks will be there for this feature. And the first task is add group and group member model plus migration files, this and this file. Then clear the 2 new tables, add find account email, add create group, add list, and so on. So all the necessary feature, as well as it has also mentioned that which feature, or I can say which task cover which acceptance criteria. So you can validate it after once that task completed. As you can see, the T04 as well as T12 means these two tasks are required for acceptance criteria 1. So when these two tasks gets completed, we can verify based on our acceptance criteria first. Same for other acceptance criteria. Okay, so we have done this. Right now, we are implementing all those feature by us because right now we are only the responsible for creating all the tasks and implementing it. But in real project, all these tasks are actually being delegated to every developer, as we have seen in our this file also, as an example file here. Every developer has their own task. So at last, all those 18 tasks which has created for this feature are being used in your Jira board or whatever the board you are using to track the task and the work that is done by the developer. You mention these tasks to them, and then once they completed, you actually verify them based on the acceptance criteria. Okay. So right now it is taking much time because all those tasks are done by us only. So I think say the word and I'll start on T01. Okay, so plan and task is created. Now it's waiting for us to implement the task. So I can implement it by myself, although it will be done by yourself only once it get delegated to the particular developer based on the task. But right now we can take the help of AI. I'll say start on T01. Start on T01. I'm going only with the T01, but later, once the T01 has been implemented, we can just do the batch up. I can say implement from T01 to throw T018, total 18 tasks are there. So it will start automatically and implemented all those tasks instead of one by one. But just for now, let's go with only with one task, T01. So if you notice till this point, we have not done a vibe coding at all and we have not write any rough idea plan. All those things are working based on the specs and the plan which we have created with the help of AI. So that's the power of SDD. Everything is in your control. AI is not deciding what code needs to be generated. You are responsible for every code, whatever AI generate for you. So it now again asks, do you want to make this edit to schema.prisma for this task? I'll say yes, go. I can review this. If I don't want to go, I can go with no. But in our case, let it be yes. Okay. Do you want to make this edit to schema.prisma? Again, yes. I can review this by the way first. Edit file. Okay. So these are the new changes in my schema.prisma file. I can verify it here as well. Specs, Clot, Prisma, schema.prisma. Okay. These are the new files added. And when I say yes, this file will also be available. Let's go with yes. And now these are also available, as you can see here. Okay, now it says the command requires approval. Okay, needs to install something. I'll say, okay, migrate Prisma. We are not going to implement all those tasks right now because it will take much more time. Our goal is to understand how spec, plan, and task all works together with the help of AI. Once you understand this, all the tasks will you can do by yourself. Do you want to proceed for what? Node this. Okay. Foreign keys. Okay, I'll go with yes. Okay, now again, you need to install test. Okay, yes. Right now we are in the manual mode. That's why it is asking for every request. I can change the mode as well. If I use shift tab, accept edits on this or plan mode, auto mode on. Okay. So when I use auto mode, I don't think so it will ask any approval from me now. Okay, committing T01 schema and migration. Okay, so the changes has been done and it has committed the code as well. But you can mention in your prompt if you don't want the commit, you can just mention that start T01 but do not commit the changes. So it will not commit. In our case, we have not so specific. That's why it has committed. We can verify here. Yes, commit is there. And these two file it has changes for task 01. And the commit message it has created, I think, feature 002. Okay, this is the commit message. Okay, I can just look at the things in my files. This is a migration.sql file where it creates a table for group member as well as for group. And this in schema.prisma model account, and these two things are added. Okay. So just like this, you will implement rest of the task. Total 18 tasks are there. Once all those tasks implemented, you can run this project. And then from browser, you can verify and validate the task based on your spec.md file. This is how you will validate. In your acceptance criteria, if you look at here, total, I think, yeah, 20 acceptance criteria are there. So you need to verify all those things one by one against your task. You have to run this particular one, which says given a person who is signed in, when they create a group and give it a name, then the group exists with the name, they are a member of it, and it appears in their list of groups. So you should, based on this acceptance criteria, you should test that functionality on browser, and if it is successfully passed, then you can say this acceptance criteria is fulfilled. Otherwise, you have to again tell the AI that this one is not working. Although this scenario will not come because everything is predictable, the code it is generated, so you don't have to trade the things. But in some edge cases, if you are not so specific in a spec.md file, so you have to mention all those things. So just like that, you can verify all those acceptance criteria against your task. And once all those things has been done, you can just commit the code, you can merge the branch, and then you can delete this particular feature branch. Okay. So right now we are just going with the task one only. I'll just commit all those files. I'll say git add. Okay. And now I'll just say git commit -m. And the name I would give here is implemented group feature, although it has not implemented yet, but we can say right now because we are moving to the next one. And I'll say git push origin and the name of my branch, which is feature slash groups. Okay. Okay, it has now pushed. Next thing is that we need to go back to our main branch. So I'll say git checkout and it should be main. Okay. So now we are in the main branch. We need to take a pull. So as we can see here right now in main branch, total, this one is there, create custom command that we have done in our main branch. Let's take a pull to get the latest code. So again, shell mode, git pull. These are basically git command, not related to uh, AI or spec-driven development. This is the entire flow that you need to maintain. Git pull origin and main. Okay. And when we run this command, it says, okay, the reason is that we have not merged the branch yet. That's why all the code is not available. So we need to first merge it. So I'll say git merge. The name of the branch that we want to merge is feature. Okay, I actually forgot git branch. So we can see the name. What are the names? Okay, feature groups. I'll just copy this, I think, if I'm able to. Okay. Now I can say git merge feature slash, and it should be main. Not main, sorry. It should be groups. And now click enter. Okay, now it has merged. It's time to take a pull. Let's wait it to complete. Okay, by doing merge, we get all the code, but the best practices are that we need to always do merge, pull, because if someone is also working on this particular branch, so maybe they have some push some code there. So best always take a pull, git pull origin main, and I will say enter. It will say that it's nothing to be take pull because everything is clean, but it's the best practices. Okay, now we need to just delete the branch, the feature branch that we have created. So I'll just write here command git branch -d, and the name of the branch that we want to delete is feature slash groups, and then click enter. And branch is deleted. We can verify it again. Git Okay, it is stuck, I think so. Okay. Are you guys able to listen my voice? Is my screen stuck? Okay, I think now it's working. So I can just simply check whether the branch is deleted or not. So I'll say git branch. And now only main branch is available. So from the local, we have deleted the branch. To delete it from remote, we have to push delete branch commit also command. So that is not required right now. Let's move to the next feature that we are going to build with the help of git spec kit, GitHub spec kit. Okay. So just open the new terminal. Although we can do this, just a minute. Claude terminal itself using the shell mode, but I would love to go here and run those specify commit command to create a new file or the new feature with the help of GitHub spec kit. So just copy the commit command that we have mentioned here in the notes. This command specify init dot copy this. Here, just make sure one thing that you are in the right directory or not. So just run this command. And yes, we are in the right directory right now, split spill. So I'll just say copy and paste this command and then enter. Okay, let's close this. Close this. And I can increase this size. Okay. So our specified terminal has started. It asking for approval. I say why. And now it will ask that in which AI would you like to use this Git spec kit? There are a bunch of support options are available. As you can see here, it has Bob, Claude, Klein, CodeBuddy, Codex, Command Code, Copilot, Cursor Agent, Devin, Droid, Firebender, and many more. You can decide on which AI agent would you like to use this particular GitHub spec kit. In our case, we want to go with Claude Code. So I'll select this option. I'll go with Claude Code and click enter. Now it will ask that which command you would you like to use, sh, ps, or py. So ps basically for Windows, and for other micro operating system, you can go with sh. So I'll go with sh here. And now our spec is created. If you open this folder, you can see this. These are the by default files are being created once you use specify init inside this directory. Now this is a specify file. Basically, it contains some templates inside this, all the necessary templates that we'll look. And if you look at the skills also, there are some skills that we need to use in our Claude code to create a spec and plan as well as the task. So if you know the concept of skills in Claude code, so you know how this actually work. So when you install the GitHub spec kit, it will create some skills for that particular spec in your skills folder. Now to use this, what we can do, I can just exit from this terminal because it work has done. Or maybe let it be open here just for the reference. I can go here. Now here, I'll just create a new feature which you want to create. Let me see which feature is the next. In our product.spec, the next feature that we want to build is expenses one. Okay, balance one is the last one. Expense we need to build. So as you know, the workflow, first we need to go and create a new branch to work inside that feature. So I'll just simply create a new branch first. Git branch, okay. I'll say git checkout minus B, and the name will be expenses. Okay. And enter. Okay. So now we are in the new branch. First, let me go to the drawing board and tell you how the GitHub spec kit actually works. Right now in our spec driven development, this is the flow we are following. We have a spec, review, design, and then review, and then task and validate. Okay. But when you are using the GitHub spec kit, you get some extra feature also. What type of feature? First thing, you will get a feature of constitution. It is a command available in your GitHub spec kit, and it is a part of spec driven development also. So if you want to create a more detailed spec driven workflow, you can have this all command also in your particular project. So you can use the constitution feature. Constitution. I'll tell you what this constitution feature actually do, but just now understand that you can have this constitution feature as a first step in your spec driven development. After this, you have another thing which is spec, the same thing that we have in spec driven development. After this, again, you have a one more thing which is a clarify. We'll look at this one also. After the clarify, let me see what are the things available so that we don't miss any important thing. After clarify, you mentioned plan. Okay. You mentioned plan. And after the plan, you mention one thing which is checklist if you want to mention. And after checklist, you go with the task. And after the task, you can use the command which is analyze. And at last, you will validate it. So this is the entire workflow you actually follow when you are using the GitHub Spec Kit. Again, this is not mandatory, but these are the feature available in your GitHub Spec Kit you can use to create a detailed spec-driven development workflow. Now, if we talk about the first step, which is the constitution. So what it is right now, see, the constitution is basically creating some principle and the rules for your spec. Do not get confused it with the claude.md file that we have created in our project. That is for the agent, how agent should behave for that particular project. But if we talk about this constitution file, there you define all the principle and the instruction to create a particular spec. So whenever you are creating a new spec or the new feature, all those constitution the principle it should follow, you mention that inside your constitution file. We'll create this particular feature in our project. So you just do this and then you go to the spec mode where you just create a spec for your feature. And once you create that spec, you have an option which is a clarify. So if you want to clarify that whether I have missed anything in my spec or not, you can just use this clarify feature to identify the things. After once all those things has been done, you can go to the technical design plan mode, and then you can do the checklist to again verify whether I have missed something or not. And then you can task, you can analyze those tasks, and at last you will validate that. So this is the entire flow. Let's try to build this in our feature. So here, now the moment you install the GitHub Spec Kit in your project, you will get all those things inside here. Just remove this. And here you will get some commands in your Claude code itself. As I told you before, the first step, we need to create a constitution. Although it is not mandatory, but I'll show you how you can create it. So just write the command using the slash. You use the slash here and then write here constitution. And you can see we got an option here, spec kit hyphen, or I can say minus constitution. And what it says, create or update the project constitution from interactive or provided principal inputs. So this is an principle for your constitution file. So I'll use this. Okay. Principle of values for the project constitution. I can define here. So I have already mentioned something here. I'll just copy it. Just a minute. Okay. Copy and paste it here. Okay. So this will be my constitution for this feature that we are going to build in our expenses one. So what I mentioned here, create a constitution for this project. We are building a splitwise like expense sharing application. Keep the architecture simple, reuse existing functionality, project existing behavior, enforce authorization on the server, handle financial data accurately, and ensure required test for important business logic and rest of the detail. So you can be more specific here based on your requirement. What you actually do, you basically have a rough idea in your mind. You can use the chatbot, maybe Claude or ChatGPT. You will define their rough idea and get a refined prompt there, which you can mention at later in your constitution file. So I'll just click enter, and I'm using this. So it will invoke the skill for this constitution file. I think this skill available here as well. Yes, spec constitution. This is a skill. So based on this skill, it will create a constitution file in our project for this feature. So we are not doing all those things by ourselves. We don't have to define the rules and the convention for the specification. We'll use the skills that are provided by GitHub Spec Kit. These are the frameworks, by the way. If you don't want to use this framework, you can go with this, the previous way also, with the feature which we have implemented, groups feature, using our own custom commands and all. We basically use this feature when we are working with multiple developers simultaneously, when all have a repo access. So you can share these skills with them so they can also work with a GitHub Spec Kit. But if the project is personal and you are working yourself only on that project, then you can have those your own custom command and work with the spec driven development. Okay. By the way, there are many other frameworks also available which you can use. This is one of them and most popular in the industry. That's why I told you. But if you want to create a different framework, then you can use one of the framework which is, let me open here to show you. New terminal. In this terminal, I'll open a Claude. And here, one of the framework is Superpower. Okay. So I'll open the plugins. From plugin, you are able to install the Superpower plugin. So click and I'll say install and a plugin from a marketplace here. So I can browse all the plugins. So if you notice here, these are all the plugins that you can use. I have already installed that one, a Superpower. That's why I think it is not mentioning here. Maybe I can search, then it will show Superpower. Okay, not showing because we already installed it. So I can look it in my install list instead of in the browse one. So I can go to the installed and here, yeah, Superpower is available. So I've already installed it. In your case, it will be available in your Discover if you have not installed. So once you install the Superpower, it will work same like that we have done the GitHub Spec Kit. It has some predefined commands which you can use to work with spec-driven development. These frameworks are only built for the SDD workflow only. So as you can look here, when I use Superpower plugin, enabled, create spec. Okay, this is my custom command. I can show you what are the things available in your spec file. I'll go skip and here I'll use Superpower. Here in Superpower, you have some predefined commands, which is a brainstorming. So just like we have a constitution, similar like that kind of, we have a brainstorming where you can just define your rough idea, which it will convert into a spec file, right? So as you can see, the description itself says you must use this before any creative work, creating features, building components, adding functionality. So you can just use this particular command and here it will define your feature. Let's say if I want to create a next one, which is a balance feature. So I'll say, I want to create a balance feature in this project. Okay. So this is the rough idea I have given. Based on this simple prompt, it will create a spec file for me. Again, we are not directly jumping to the code mode. So we can use this particular rough idea and we can give this command to the brainstorming, which will create a refined spec file for this particular feature. Okay. Now, once you use this brainstorming one command, the next one you can use in the superpower is this one, writing plans. So you just mention the spec file, which is created by the brainstorming, and it will create a writing plan for you. After this, you can use the task one also. Superpower writing plan, writing skills, executing plan. Yeah, this one. So it will execute your plan and using superpowers, using get work tree option is also available. So if you want to, just like you have seen, we have created a different branch for every new spec. Same like that, it will automatically create a new work tree whenever you create a new spec using the brainstorm command. Okay. So even if you not mention this git work tree command, it will create a new work tree for you. These are the features available in Superpower uh, framework. Other commands are also available like systematic debugging, receiving code review. You can review code once the task has been implemented. And test driven development is also available. So just like we have SDD, which is stands for spec driven development, we have test driven development also, where if anything gets failed, it will look at the things, do the small changes to make sure that thing get passed, and it will run in the loop until the particular task get passed. So you can use this test driven development also. After that, dispatching parallel agents. Yeah, sub agent feature is also available. So you can run that as well. Sub agent driven development is also available. Finishing a development branch, verification before complete. So you can use this superpower framework if you want to work with this spec driven development. Okay. So if you go back to our GitHub spec kit feature, this one. Okay. So what it has done. Okay. Spec file is created. I think so. Is it available? Let's see. Claude specify. Okay, what it says. Uh, docs. The constitution refers to Claude Automatic on mechanics. Small existing inconsistency here. We are building a specific feature for this and task is written T01. Okay, what it says, let me read it. Validate passes, one per rule named, principal. Okay, so this is what it has created. I can just say create this constitution file in my folder. So I'll just simply write create constitution file. Okay. So these are the principles: simple architecture, reuse before building, protect shift behavior, authorization on the server, money is exact. So for this particular feature, all those things are mentioned here. Okay, so it already exists. I wrote it in the previous turn. Okay, okay. So the thing is that it has already created in my previous file. This one. Okay. So it is available. Yes. Split C constitution is also available here. Core principle and everything is mentioned. So once we have this, we can move to the specify. Means basically getting a spec document. So again, I can use a GitHub spec kit command. I can just write here spec kit and I'll go with specify. Okay. And okay, I forgot to mention the spec that I want to use here. I'll just run the command again. No worries. This entire thing. No feature description was provided. Yes. What I can do, I can just abort this one. Keep Claude specs. Where should the new spec live? Type something. Okay, I'll go with the type something because I want to provide my own prompt. So it will create a spec based on me because we are following the spec driven development. So I'll just write my own prompt, this one. I'll say build the expense feature for our existing splitwise like application. Accounts and group members are already implemented. Group members should be able to add an expense, choose who paid, select the members involved, and split the expense either equally or using exact amounts. And now I say enter. Which feature should this spec cover? Feature expense and split mode, balance and settle up, something else. Okay, first one. So I have given my prompt. I'll say submit. And now it will create a spec file based on my prompt. So as you notice, I have not mentioned my rules for the spec file. And even though I have not tell that read my plan.md file and all, skills is already available in GitHub spec kit. I'll just use that particular skill and just define my basic prompt in the rough idea. And now it has created my spec in my folder. You can look at that, taking the description as a feature and defaulting the location to Claude specs. Okay, we can look at it. Claude specs 003. Okay, it will create here. Let's wait for it to create. Script, memory, specify. Let's see how much time will it take. Meanwhile, we can read the constitution file, right? Yes, we can read it. What it mentioned here. Okay, it has started from here. Specific constitution. This we have already read. Core principle, simple architecture. It should follow. SRC app, SRC library, SRC app, and SRC components. Failures a caller is expected to handle must be returned as values. Reuse before building. Add rules that answer the same questions in two places. And relational project shift behavior. Authorize on the server. And money is exact. Money is always an integer number of cents, never a float, never a string, never a decimal. Okay, so I think it has read our project structure, and based on that, it has created a constitution for every feature. And test for business rules. Features stay independent. Feature must be buildable, testable, and reviewable one at a time. Technology and all the things. Development workflow and governance. Claude.md remains binding the day-to-day mechanism and return to agree with the document. Okay, so this is what constitution actually contain. Let's look at what thing has done till now. Okay, crunched for 3 minutes. So this is a spec file. Let's see what thing is there. Do we have the spec file here? Yes, we have. We can review it from here. I'll close this one. Open our spec file now. This is a checklist. Okay, that's the part which we have mentioned. Spec.md file. And okay, so what exactly does spec file contains and use of this? Okay, so we have discussed this in our first webinar also, but let me give you the overview. In the spec file, you basically mention the feature requirements, that what this feature is for and why you are creating this feature. Basically, you have created a problem statement. I'll show you all the basic points that you need to mention in spec file. We have discussed all those things here. These are the things you need to mention in spec file. So for example, if you are creating a spec file for a feature, let's say this one, in our case, add comments to a post. So if you are creating a social media application where you want to create a feature where user can add a comment in your post, you have to define a specification for that. So this is what you actually define. First thing, you define the specification problem statement, that what's the actual problem in this project and why you need this project feature for in your project. So we have defined the same thing for this one, like user can read posts and all. Then you define the functional requirement. What are the requirements I need in this particular feature? Like I have mentioned, show a comment input below each post, allow sign in user to submit a comment, and all the requirements. Same goes with the user flow, and then edge cases, as well as acceptance criteria, and then you define the definition of done. In short, in the specification file, you mention all the non-technical details which you feed to the AI. Based on that, it will create a technical detail plan for you, where you mention all this tech stack and all. So spec file is just a document for your feature, which is being created by a product manager based on the task it needs to be developed. Okay, I'll share this spec driven development, this PDF file with you, so you are actually get to know what are the things available in the spec file. Okay, it's basically non-technical details in a simple English language so that anyone can understand, those who have do not have the knowledge of coding also. Okay, so clear what the spec file is? Just the non-technical details you mentioned there for your feature. Why you want this feature and what that feature actually contains. Okay, if we come back here, uh, okay, this is a spec file it has created. It says the feature branch. This is the feature branch name. Created, the date, status, draft currently, input. Okay, so this is the input, user description, build expense feature, which we have feed, and the user scenario and the testing. So just now we have seen for that feature, which we have seen this one dummy one, same like that, we have this feature. User story one, record an expense split, why this priority, independent test, acceptance scenarios, when this feature will get accepted. So all those things are mentioned in a spec file. And user story two, acceptance scenario. Now we have not set some rules that how should spec file this should be created. It has created based on the skills provided in your GitHub spec kit that we are using currently right now, a framework spec kit, right? So if you notice here, in specification, okay, in skills, we have this specify skills. So whenever you create or use this command, spec-kit specify, it reads all the skills that are mentioned here, and based on that, it create a spec for your feature. Okay. So this is what we are done. So basically, we are automating the task. We are not defining our own rules that how specify files should be there and what are the major points there. Although this, you can follow this one because it is already following the industry specification. So it makes sure that whatever the spec it created by itself is actually acceptable and is worth it. So you don't have to worry about that. You have to do the manual changes and the spec file is not worth it. As you can look at here, it mentioned all the necessary points, acceptance criteria, user story, as well as independent test and user story 4. And it created a detailed spec file. You can read this and assumption as well and rest of the things. Okay, so as we discussed now in our drawing board, that in GitHub spec kit, once you implemented this spec, the next thing you can run the clarify, or if you need, if you want, if you feel like that you have missed something in your spec file, you can run the clarify command as well, just like we have run the spec kit spec command to clarify the things. And after that, you can build the plan, you can checklist that plan. If you feel like that, again, you have to do something with the plan. And after that, you can go to the implement, analyze, and validate. So we'll not do all those things right now because steps are quite similar. That thing we have done in the previous feature also. I'll just show you the commands so you can just run. And although I'll show you the prompt also for each command. So right now, if I don't want to clarify because I know spec file is already containing all the things, so I'll just use the plan mode because I'm going now creating a test plan for my particular spec. So I'll use spec kit plan like this. And okay, again, I forgot to mention the plan. I just clicked the enter, but I'll write the prompt. This is the prompt. And okay, not like this. Okay, instead of there, I can mention, show you here as well by creating a demo dummy file, txt file. I can say GitHub spec-kit.txt. And here, any member of the group, may you change, let it be like this correction trace and submit answer. I'll just mention it, let it do its task. Meanwhile, we'll understand. So the command which we have used right now is this one, spec-kit plan, spec-kit plan. And for this particular command, I'll paste this prompt. I'll just simply say create the implementation plan for this expense feature. Inspect the existing code base first and follow the architecture and conventions already used for account and group members. So first it will look at my previous feature and then reuse the existing authentication, group membership, databases, API, front end and testing, and then design the simplest solution that satisfy the specification and leaves balances as a separate feature. So this is what you mentioned in the spec kit plan, and you will review that just like you can look at here. Whatever the changes it is doing, you can review by yourself before amending that. And after that, you can checklist if you want to do the checklist. We are not going to do that. And after the checklist, you basically go with the what? This one, task, based on the plan it has created. So you write this command, okay? It should be with slash. You just write spec kit task. You use this command where you mention the break the approved expenses specification and the plan into extendable implementation tasks. Follow dependency and reuse the existing project structure. Include the necessary backend, database, front-end validation, authorization, and do not include the balance feature. So based on this command or the prompt, it will create a task for you and then you implement that task. So to implement that task, very simple, you can again use this command, which is the last command. So you can use this one, this, and here you write like this, spec-kit hyphen implement, where you will implement and say implement the approved expenses feature according to the specification, plan, and task. So these three things you have already created for this feature using the GitHub spec-kit command. And then you say use this particular three files, and based on that, read the task and implement all those tasks. I'll say follow the existing project conventions, reuse account and group members, and complete the relevant automated test. Do not implement it balance or unrelated functionality. So in this way, I have implemented the task. At last, I'll validate my task based on this spec file which we have created. Where it is, spec file. Yeah, this one. So I can validate acceptance criteria, this one. I can validate all my tasks based on that. And if all those acceptance criteria are fulfilled, I would say that this feature is completely passed and we can now merge it to the main branch and push it to the prod. So this is how actually spec-driven development actually works in companies whenever they want to build any new feature with the help of AI. They can automate it task, but a human should always be there between every pillars, between your spec, between your plan, as well as your task, and at last at the validate. Human should always be there to review the things just to make sure nothing goes out of his requirement. So in this way, you actually work with spec-driven development. You don't have to mention the multiple prompt. As you notice in this entire session, on the previous webinar as well as in today's webinar, we have not written a simple command or the prompt like this, that this is not working, fix this is not what I expect. We have not done this basic prompt, which is a part of vibe coding. We just write the things all in the one, right? Human should always be in the loop. Even though you use the AI, use the spec driven development, you automate the task with the help of AI, but at last, judgment is always done by the human. So even not in now, in future also, if AI will enough capable and intelligent enough, human should always be there at last for the judgment because this is the new role for the human. Okay. So in this way, spec-driven development works. If I just want to recap in one line that what we have covered in this entire two sessions or in the two webinars, we have covered the spec-driven development. We have seen how it is different from the vibe coding. And at last, we have created our own manual spec-driven file just to get familiar with the spec-driven development. And then we use Cloud Code features like plan mode as well as the custom commands to work with spec-driven development with the help of Cloud Code. And then we have used frameworks that are specifically made for the spec-driven development workflow. Like we have seen the GitHub Spec Kit as well as Superpower plugin. So using those plugins, you can use their own custom commands and automate your workflow as we have done right now. So I hope you find this informative and you actually know how spec-driven development actually works. Still you have any doubt, you can ask right now and then we'll end up this session. Although if you want this code, I'll share this code repo with you. So you can look at the how specs and all being created here. And if you want this as well, just for the clarification, how specs, plan, and task are being implemented, I'll share this as well. And if you want this, just for the understanding purpose, how vibe coding is different from the spec-driven development, we'll share this also. I'll share this all in the video resources section. So once the recording is available, you will find this in our LMS platform. I'll show you how you can access it. Next, no, sessions will always be there on Thursday and on Monday. Now that next session is not going to be taken by me. The next session will be something different. You will get to know about this in a platform. I'll show you here. Let me open our platform. Learn.telesco.com. And here, okay, I need to do first login. should I need to do, or am I able to access? If I go with my previous webinar, okay, I need to log in. No worries, I can go with my account which is already logged in instead of doing a new login. I'll open this one. Okay, here I'll just run, enter. Okay, I'm now here. And here, just like this, when the recording is available, you can find this in this resources section. I'll attach all the relevant resources you can find here. And if you have any doubt, you can mention your doubt also in the discussion section. My team or maybe I myself look at it and clarify your doubts. Okay, so we have implemented all the feature for you. You just need to use them, resources as well as the discussion section. So you can get for this one as well, spec-driven development. Here I'll attach the resources here. Okay. When on Thursday there's a different webinar, you will get to know about this in this webinar section. So keep an eye on this and make sure you enroll it. It's totally free. You don't have to pay a single money. So we created this webinar just to give you the knowledge about how AI is actually evolving in nowadays and how you should use them in your development, right? So make sure you enroll every webinar and learn something new. We have already covered these 4 webinars, although previous webinar is not available in this webinar section. You will get those webinar also soon. But right now these 4 webinars are available. You can look at them as well. Okay. So we are done with this. Okay. Any other question do you guys have? Okay. Thank you. I hope you find it informative. And we'll meet again in the next webinar on Thursday. Okay. Not me. Maybe someone else will take, but webinar will be there. Okay. Thank you. Good night. Have a good day. Okay.